All right, guys. So we have Nazareth here who has stepped up on last minute notice, which is appreciated, to do a live front end mock interview, which a lot of people have been asking for. And oftentimes when you get interviews, it's kind of like this, where it's like, you don't typically have an audience, but you do. Well, I guess you do kind of in the workplace, um, except they're there in person a lot of times, which is even worse. So we're gonna start off by asking some. It's gonna be a front end technical interview. It's gonna be pretty similar to what I would probably ask a candidate at my work, and we're gonna be asking front end questions, things related to CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and from there we're then going to lead into a some algorithms and go from there. Nazareth, would you mind introducing yourself, a little bit of your background for people?
Okay, hello, my name is Nazareth. So I just finished my associate degree in computer science. Before I used to do sales and client retention, but I really wanted to hop into the world of web development just because I really like being able to build something for someone and just how people interact with, you know, um, their online presence. It just really intrigues me. I just feel like, having an online presence is just so mandatory in today's world. So yeah, that's how I got into JavaScript and other front end technologies.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna just jump into it at the end of the day, and we will pretend this first half is a phone interview, more or less, because that's the sort of questions you would have. So everyone's interview process is different, but typically, as most people know, you'll have a phone sort of screen at the end of the day to see if they're going to move forward, and that's usually a bit of personality questions as well as a bit of technical questions. So that's what we're going to focus on right now. Those usually last about 30 minutes in length. We're going to probably do about 10 to 15 minutes. I don't want to grill you too hard. But, hopefully we'll have some fun here. So in this scenario, you are interviewing. I am either going to be your coworker or your potential future manager, and um, let's just say we got out of the "Hey, can you hear me? Okay" introduction, but you know, can you tell me sort of what your career goals are, and what is it that you're looking for?
Okay, so I definitely want to be like a expert level person when it comes to JavaScript. So that includes all its technologies. I just really am fascinated by JavaScript's ability not only to be used on the front end but also on the back end. So uh, every day I try to learn a little bit more about how it's used, not only, like I said, with the front end technologies such as Angular, which is the framework that I've chosen, but also on the back end with like Node, Express, Mongo, etc.
Nice. Now, what sort of work environment and culture would you think you would thrive in?
Definitely one where I have a team leader that like I will give a team leader a room to lead. I want to be led, but I also like to have a little bit of pride in myself where I can be competent enough to work on my own. So it's not really like a leader or follower type role, but I think I thrive as a second in command, someone who my boss can kind of just trust me to know what I'm doing, but also somebody that has the opportunity to have someone that can guide me and kind of point me out in the right direction.
Excellent. Now, you know, web dev specifically, but software in general is constantly changing. How do you stay up to date?
I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and then also um, I keep up with trying to learn things on Udemy. I generally check out, what's trending or just the new releases and things like that. So I try to stay pretty active in the community as far as just listening to people that are more experienced than me, kind of saying, this is the trends that are coming up. These are things that you should consider taking a look at.
Nice. Now, in the last 6 months, what specifically is something that you've learned or that you've improved upon?
So definitely, I would say just my overall comfort level with JavaScript in general. I really had no idea what Node was or Express was, and so I was able to follow through with some of the Udemy courses and being able to just get be able to understand how the front end and the back end kind of integrate with each other, and of course how to connect a database to the back end as well with Mongo. So it's just understanding the overall architecture as well as just better syntax as well.
Excellent. Now, everyone has the items that they like and their strengths, and the first part of this question is, what would you say is something that you would like to do, or is a strength of yours?
My strength is I think I have a good understanding of just building things. So if I'm led to, if I'm told the specifics of what something should look like or what it should do, then in my mind, I can kind of process, okay, these are the steps that I need to make in order to make it functional. So I would say building functionality is definitely my strength.
Excellent. Now, on that note, what is probably the project that you're most proud of, or the most technical, whatever one you most enjoyed?
A very popular YouTuber that I follow, his name is Dylan Israel. I actually completed his 100 algorithm challenge. And so it was just a bunch of various computer algorithms that were used in all kinds of technical interviews from Google, Facebook, Uber, etc. And I was able to navigate through, I want to say 92 out of 100 of those completely on my own. So that really made me feel like I had a deeper understanding of JavaScript and just being able to problem solve.
Excellent. Okay, so at this point in the interview, now that I'm breaking character, but at this point in the interview, I would probably have asked a question about what attracted you to this opportunity. But considering we never discussed any sort of pseudo background, I want to mention that because anyone who's being interviewed should be prepared to say, what do you know about the company? Why do you want to work with us, and all that sort of stuff. For everyone watching right now. So let's get into a little bit more of the technical questions. And I don't have a list or anything in front of me, so I'm just going to go a little bit off the top of my head. And we're going to probably just jump in between CSS and JavaScript at the end of the day. So okay, Nazareth, now we're going to dive into the some more technical questions, unless you have any initial questions before we get started.
No, I'm good. Continue.
Okay. So when it comes to CSS, there's several ways of doing responsive design. Would you mind naming a few?
Could you repeat the question, please?
When it comes to CSS, what are some native ways of handling responsive design?
Of handling responsive design?
So let's
Do you
say
mean like
I want to have
responses?
a mobile view and I want to
Okay.
have a desktop view and maybe a tablet view. What might be some native built-in CSS items or technologies that can handle that can help us with that?
Definitely media queries are the first thing that come to mind. I know that Flexbox has a couple of features which can help the items change, depending on the desktop to mobile view, and as far as how they're stacked. Definitely using percentages instead of fixed pixel,
Pixels?
perfect. Yeah, exactly. Or just using things like view width and view height and etc.
Excellent. Now, in CSS, there is the concept of classes and IDs. Can you briefly describe the difference?
I would say that an ID is very, very specific, while a class is kind of it's a way of grouping certain items together. So for a class, it would be something that you would want to apply to multiple different elements, whereas an ID is something that you want to target a very specific item in the document object model.
And when it comes to the CSS selectors of classes and IDs, which one takes precedence? When
The one with the highest priority.
which is which one?
The ID, definitely.
Okay. So let's jump into a little bit of JavaScript questions, and we may jump back to CSS in a second. But JavaScript has this concept of promises. Can you briefly explain what they are and how we might use them?
I'm not sure about promises.
Okay, that's fine. Are you familiar with Ajax calls?
Yes.
and handling so asynchronous. Could you briefly go over what the four major Ajax calls are? If you follow, let's say, REST standards or something like that.
Okay. I believe they are get, post, put, and delete.
Okay, and just briefly describe what they do.
So those are like verbs as far as how you are interacting with a website when you're handling requests. So a get would be like you are requesting information from a server. A post is when you are sending information to a server. A put would be if you are, I believe, trying to update information, and then delete is if you're trying to remove something from the server.
Okay, and in JavaScript in 2015, ES6 came out and they released some new standards. Could you briefly describe the difference with const and let versus var, and just sort of maybe just in general what a const is and a let is?
Okay, so const and let they have to do with const and let they are answers to the problem with JavaScript in that with var everything was hoisted up to the top of the JavaScript code. So what const and let do is that I believe the phrase is that they have a block scope in which the variables when they are instantiated inside a place, in a block of code where const and let are used, then they aren't hoisted up to the top of the JavaScript code. Whereas with var, the problem with it is that you can still instantiate an item in a block of code, but it would still be hoisted up to the top. So when you were to, let's say, console.log, a var element at the end of the page, it would return, I believe, undefined, whereas where the const and let, it would return as not declared at all.
Excellent. Now, what is the difference between const and let?
So const is an item that I believe is immutable in its data type. So for instance, if you wanted it to only be a string, only to be a number, only to be an object, then you would have it only be that. Whereas let, it can change the type. The thing with const, though, is just because you declare it as an object or an array, you can still change the items within it.
Excellent.
Because it's still saying that it can only be an array or it can only be an object.
Good. Now, in JavaScript, it is a dynamically typed language, and we have the type of operator. What are some maybe gotchas that might come about if we were to use that operator?
So I think one of the gotchas.
Like, what might you have to maybe double check or add some additional logic to avoid when you use type of? What might be something that you might be worried about?
I'm not sure.
Okay. When it Sorry, I forgot. I had another question. My apologies. I have a brain fart here.
Okay.
When what was this? A good one. Actually, I think that's pretty good. So we did a little bit of a phone interview. We did a little bit of the technical interview questions, and went over some. And typically, if we were to progress, you probably are going to move on to some algorithm sections. And we're gonna. I already sent the link. Would you mind? Actually, I'll share my screen. I guess that'll just be easier. And so, let me delete this. Nazareth, I'm going to give you a basic algorithm here and give you about 5 minutes. And would you mind walking me through your solution as we anyway, trying to make it stick on me. There we go. As we go to it. So what I would like you to solve is I would like you to write a function that returns if a string is a palindrome. The only caveat to this is I don't want you to use any built-in array methods or string methods. I want you to solve this without any of those. So just pure basic JavaScript with no higher order functions.
that correct? Of what you were asking me? Cool.
Yep, perfectly correct.
Okay. So the first thing I would do is just write out a simple, function outline. So palindrome, and then it's taking only a single string, correct?
Correct.
And so string. Okay, so the way I would do this is I know that I could check if if I iterate through the string in one way, if it matches the same way it's iterating through starting from the end. So I can open up with a for loop. Just say for let I equals 0. I am less than str dot length. I plus plus. And then
all right, so you have this for loop that is going to iterate through the string that's being passed in. What's our next objective here?
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking I was going to put another loop inside another loop, but then I was like, that's really bad as far as how much time it uses. So I'm going to go ahead and try to avoid that. So I'm going to say let reverse word is equal to an empty string. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to start from the end. So I'm going to say let or if I'm iterating to the end, I would say let is equal to the reverse word dot length, and as long as I is greater than 0, it's going to go through it.
Now,
and this will just subtract.
Based on what the logic that you have here, does this loop ever actually run? So what is the length of reverse word when it hits the for loop?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. I'm comparing it to this, so I would need to compare it to str.length, right? So
Yep.
then, okay, which is greater than 0, and I minus minus. And so what I'm checking is that if I'm going to do reverse word, which is I'm going to add every letter of str I. And then I'm going to return. So I've essentially just put every letter into reverse word, but backwards. And then I'm going to return reverse word equals str. And that's how I would go with it.
Okay. So looking at this, there's a small oversight in your for loop setup. Can you see if there's anything that stands out to you about what the issue may be? There's actually two small items in your for loop here. When we get the length of an iterable, what is it returning? You're accessing your string using bracket notation.
Right.
And is there any issue with how that's happening in regards to how you're getting those values?
I'm not sure. I mean, I could put str into like a.
So when you start when you get a value out of an array, it starts on the 0 index, right?
Right.
When we get the length of that array, if there's one item in it, does it return 0? Or does it return 1? Okay. Can you see where the second error is in your logic here in the for loop? If we were to run this, what would be if we were to run this value? Would we ever get to the 0 index?
Yes, we would. Well, I mean, we would if we were to do it right, but yeah.
There you go. Okay, so perfect. Originally, usually in these technical interviews, and this is a fine solution. You might be pressed to, okay, how can we improve this, and how can we do all that sort of bumble jumbo? And there's a bunch of different ways that you can reverse strings, and this would probably be almost identical to how I would do it. But we could, you might be asked in a real technical interview how we might optimize this, right? So one way that we could optimize this is we can actually make it more memory efficient by eliminating the reverse word and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not going to ask you to worry about that. But what might be some considerations in our palindrome here, our palindrome checker function, that we might want to consider, some edge cases?
If the word that I'm checking is not, well, if it's not a string, first of all, I think that would be an issue. Some other ones, if special letters and characters, if you want to adjust spaces and things like that.
Okay. Anything else that comes to mind?
I mean, if the user doesn't enter a word at all, that would also be an issue, but that's all I can really think of.
Yeah, so that's pretty close to what I was getting at. So I was two things that I would normally probably I believe a word is technically still a palindrome, even if the case is different. So we'd want to make a comparison on the cases as well.
Okay.
And then as well as you can sort of avoid all this looping and maybe put some logic. If the string length is less than 1, just go ahead and return true. Stuff like that. But that was good, man. So let me go ahead and stop sharing the screen here. Yeah. So hopefully that wasn't too technical. Usually I'd probably we might go into probably that's sort of like a standard warm-up algorithm problem. You'll probably end up doing 2 or 3 in any technical interview. And the questions we asked were on the easier to intermediate end, but you did very well. And there's always room for improvement, right? And so how was it? I know it's probably a little bit nerve-wracking doing this and then having 60 people watch you while you do it, but I think you did an excellent job.
I kind of wish I was more mentally prepared, but yeah, I think I got the gist of what I was trying to do. I just need, if I was working kind of like on an IDE, I could kind of, it would be more apparent of what the issues were right off the bat.
So that's sort of part of it. So for the most part, in any technical interview that I've done that's been digital, you're almost never allowed IDE. When so on the whiteboard there's no IDE, right?
Okay, yeah.
In fact, when I've interviewed with Google and Amazon, Amazon quite literally had me share my screen and do it in Notepad, and Google sent me a Google Doc exactly like this. So yeah. Yeah, it's not the funnest thing, but in all honesty, I know you're just getting going. You did very well. I've done probably about 25 interviews in the last year, it feels like, and you did better than I would say about 15 to 20 of them. And so they and these are, sometimes these people have 20 years experience, and sometimes they have 2 years experience. So keep up the good work, man. You're just definitely progressing and doing very well, and I thank you for coming on here, because it takes balls, and it's gonna go very far in life. So why I'm on here, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, because it's the least I can do for you, stepping up to the plate, and hopefully answer some questions for other people as well while I'm here.
Thank you so much.
All right, no.
Was I supposed to ask something?
No, if you have any questions, if you want any feedback or anything, that's all I was offering. But that was excellent.
Oh, I wanted to brush up if you can just explain what a promise was.
Yeah.
That was something that wasn't.
So that's something that I would definitely say, just get comfortable with promises, because that's why I followed up with the sort of, are you familiar with Ajax Calls? Because promises are essentially a way to handle asynchronous code. And so in ES6, I want to say they added promises officially. But if you've seen async and await, that would be another thing that I would have followed up with, like how, if you said, oh, promise is one way to handle this. So essentially, a promise is essentially an asynchronous call, meaning that, we hit this code block and we're waiting for it to resolve, and we're moving on to something else. Or maybe we're awaiting it, and we're going to wait until we get the response back from the server. So like when we get that get call, it might return a promise. The promise being, I promise to give you some data later on. Yeah, it's one way of handling asynchronous code. It's something that pretty much every developer should be familiar with at the end of the day. You don't have to know them inside and out, but you should be comfortable with asynchronous code and Ajax calls and things like that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's pretty much all the questions I had. I don't know. I didn't really come prepared.
I know, man. I appreciate it. All right, Nazareth. I'm gonna answer some questions from the people that are left. I appreciate it, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. It's the least I can do down the road. So.
All right. Thank you so much, man. You have a great weekend. I'll speak to you soon.
You too. Bye. All right, guys. So, Nazareth put his big boy pants on and signed up and pulled the trigger, and I'm very proud of the young man. I think that was very, very excellent of him, and I'm very impressed. I really am. There's very few people who will go and do public speaking, put themselves out there, and be willing to lay it on the line. And it's intimidating, right? I don't like being interviewed, and I don't like being interviewed in front of groups of people. So I appreciate him doing that, and I hope he got some value out of it. But while I'm here, if you'd like, I will answer some questions, and we can go from there. So this was very close to a average interview that I would do for a potential front-end dev. Some things that I probably forgot that I should have asked was how to handle like how you might architect a project out. That's always a good question. Given this situation, how might you do it? Yeah, man. Was the palindrome question just a warm-up question for algorithms? Yes. I mean, what good would it have done to hit the young man with a, given this two-dimensional array, I want you to find all the even numbers and do a Sudoku puzzle that goes left to right and diagonally. You know what I mean? Like if you go on any algorithm site, the palindrome, is something a palindrome, or return, something like that. It's going to be it's going to be a pretty standard interview question. Not standard, but it's the first or second or third algorithm that you would ever do on any algorithm site. Go on like Code Fights, go on. Do we ever get asked to optimize a given program? Yeah, and I sort of talked about that. It's like normally you might be asked how to optimize it and things like that. And the idea, so here's the thing, guys. When you're being interviewed at the end of the day, the idea is to be, you want to ask questions that you can have follow-up questions, really find out where their level is at and drill down. If you can't keep asking questions until they can get one wrong, you did a very poor example. You did a very poor job of interviewing. And at the end of the day, my cat is just like nonstop up on my desk today. At the end of the day, you want to find out how deep of knowledge they have. And because it's important, right? Yeah. Can did he pass? I'd say he would have passed that interview for the most part. And he was someone who was eager and someone who was clearly learning. And were there gaps in the knowledge? Yeah, but that's your job as an interview, find where those gaps are. And if you don't find gaps in this section, cool, let's keep diving in these areas and see where he's at and go from there, because that's what your job is. Your job as an interviewer is to find out where they're at and see what you can do, and figure out where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, because that's why when you're getting asked questions, you're going to be asked follow-up questions. Like he gave a very clear and concise answer about the constant let, and a follow-up question would have been, okay, do you know the difference between, what's the difference between let and var? And he sort of basically breaks it down. And in technical words, I probably would have asked him, what is the difference between lexical and block scope? He basically answered that. And then he went on to answer about const, which then said that, it's a lot of people. So people who don't really know JavaScript will say const means that you have a read-only value that is a constant and you're never going to change. That's not fully true. So you would follow up, well, is that true for objects and arrays as well? And some people say yes if they knew, and other people say no. But he already answered that fully, and he did a very good job. So you want to answer things fully as well. I'll take about 5 more minutes, guys, to do questions, and then I think I gotta go back to the grind. But it was, did you guys enjoy this? Would you like me to do another one down the road? I'd be I would be happy to do another one and be maybe write up some more questions and figure some things out. I'll have to come up with different questions though, because I know some of you guys will watch this and be good to go. Do another right back to back. We see what we can come up with. Yeah. It's gonna be I'm not kidding you. I literally posted like a week ago that I was gonna do something like this. I did follow up and said, first person basically say yes and send their email. Bam, here he is, stepping up to the plate, trying. And you know why? That's why he did so well. He did extremely well. He did very well. And the reason for it at the end of the day is because he's there learning, he's grinding, he's putting himself out there, right? He's like, hey, let me go do this interview in front of all these people. That's going to be awkward. Who cares? I'll get to ask some questions maybe, and I'll get to see where I'm at, and maybe, ask what is a promise, and, what does it mean asynchronous code? And so those are the type of people that do step up. It's, so that was very good. I was very happy with that, with him, and he did very well. It would have been really bad if this just bombed. Like, it's awkward for everybody, and that happens, right? It happens in every interview where you're doing the technical phone screen and they're bombing. They know they're bombing, and then it gets awkward because they're apologizing, and you're like, Yeah, but I was very happy. Do you use object-oriented programming concepts when coding front end? I do quite frequently. So in TypeScript specifically, and in Angular, you're using classes quite a bit. So you need to start thinking in object, and that I use object-oriented concepts in general. So it's thanks for opportunity, man. I appreciate $5 donation from. Look, man, I should be giving you $5. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, man, for stepping up to the plate. So, Nazareth, I appreciate that. Flowers to Kitty, which is almost as cool as the name is Nazareth, man. I got like Dylan, and that's not very original. Nazareth sounds like that might be your Diablo screen name, man. That's a pretty cool name. So yeah, it was a good time. Thank you so much, man. But yes, you should be familiar with object-oriented programming. You should be somewhat familiar with functional programming. I don't do a lot of functional programming pretty much ever, but I understand the core concepts behind it. It was your Diablo screen name, man. I'm sure it was your parents' Diablo screen name before they took it over, right? But yeah, so that was excellent. I'll do another one in the future. Try and give you guys some opportunities, and see if I can help you out along your way. It's a good way for me to owe you guys a favor as well. So Nazareth, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to provide. So here's the thing, man. I'm always happy to network and provide value for those people who step up as I have tried to do as people have done for me as needed. So yeah, it's good. And can I just say, I'm not one of those hippy dippity type people who is like, the world is perfect, let's all hold hands and love each other. But I appreciate, and someone said this in the Cotech and Caffeine Facebook chat the other day, that the support and positivity is something that helps keep people motivated. So I appreciate that. Here we have a young man who's going through his grind, doing his computer science program, and continuing to grow and learn and do everything that he can to get better and get to where he wants to be. And the chat, from what I can tell, has been very supportive and very nice, and I appreciate that very much so, because that's the type of people we want, right? We want people to take opportunities, we want people to grind, we want people to learn, and we want the people that do that to, when they get there, to help us out along the way so that we can do that. Because I personally think that it is part of our responsibility as developers to mentor those around us and mentor those that come after us, because God knows they're not teaching this shit in school. You think he learned anything about JavaScript in his computer science program? You think he learned anything about MongoDB, Angular, Express? No. Nothing. So he's out here doing it on his own time, putting the work in. And I'm sure, no doubt, he's going to help out other people down the road as well, as I hope that we all will. So anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you take that. Yeah, Flowers Kitty, I'll send Nazareth, if you could just email me if you want just your first name or last name as well. I don't think I wrote down your last name. If you just want to email me real quick, I'll add it in there and we'll have it on there for you, man. No problem at all. And if you want me to include a link to your blog or your LinkedIn or YouTube channel, whatever you got, go ahead and shoot that in the message over as well, and I'll update it right away. So where's the Discord? So One day, boys. I do have a Discord technically, but I don't ever use Discord. So I just recommend that you guys go over and check out Traversity Media's Discord channel. He has a very active one, and he's very good about it. It's a great dev Discord channel, so I'd recommend that you go and do that. We share a lot of the same subscribers and same people who are out there doing their damn thing. And if you guys really want me to create a Slack group for the Facebook group, I will. And I will throw out the Discord channel in the description below. The only thing is I'm rarely ever on Discord, so if you'd like, I will make an announcement video that I've created a Slack, and I've created a Discord channel for you guys so that you can all sort of lurk together in on various platforms. But we'll see when we do this the next time, man. It's gonna be spontaneous though, because I don't need you Googling the day before 50 top JavaScript questions. Nah, you got to know it. We're putting you on the spot, baby. All right, guys. With that being said, thank you again, Nazareth, who not only showed up, but donated $5. Man, it's killing it today. And thank you guys for being here and being supportive, because it's stressful doing this sort of stuff. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested and you're saying, damn, man, Nazareth did pretty good on that palindrome problem. Put him on the spot in front of 60 people, no prep work. I wish I could do that good. Might I recommend the 100 algorithm challenge with a coupon code to get it for just $9.99 in the description below. Can you believe that? That is just 10 cents per algorithm. Just 10 cents. You can't find better value than that. Not $1, not a 50-cent coin, not a quarter, just a dime per algorithm. And on top of that, we include answers to some of the more common JavaScript interview questions. So if you're interested in killing your technical interview, check out in the description below. I appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. We'll see when we do another one. And Cheeto wants to say we got to go. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.